Looking at today's reading culture in Nigeria, specifically in Nigeria, or in West Africa, but in Nigeria, what trends would you say you noticed within today's reading culture in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I think you have something like a hybrid, reading taste in the country as it is now. I think perhaps about the strongest we could talk about in Nigeria now is the social media, and technology media, related reading. I think a lot more people are reading on their devices. Now, but there's also a second dimension to that, in that what we would call serious literature, what we will call, serious, text, is not the primary focus of many of the people who engage on the digital space, who engage with reading on the digital space. So partly also because of some of the constraints of the digital space, one, and also because of the infrastructure and cost constraints that you have in Nigeria. It's not cheap to read, full-length, or younger titles in the Nigerian environment, as it were. And then you also have the other issues about competing media. Videos, have become quite strong. Photos have strengthened their pace. So the visual, in that sense, is impacting on how much time people have now to interrogate texts, and how much space and how much time. So you have that bit. Then you also have the people who read books, who go to bookshops, who go to festivals, who had picked up a habit, a culture sort of reading, and continue to read, right? But this also is now being affected by its own range of challenges. For example, Nigeria 30, 40 years ago was more rural than urban. Today, it's more urban than rural, right? I think about 60 or so percent of if not going close to 70, is either urban or semi-urban. So now the kind of lifestyle you have, somewhat sedentary, somewhat calmer, you can see the average Lagosian jumping the buses, and the swell of the city and all of that. And to take it that that Lagos culture that used to be, an outlier is becoming national culture. So you are finding busier cities everywhere. Unlike before, when you go to a town like Akure or a town like, Owo or Ibadan, and they are slower, but they're getting faster now. And that in itself, has an impact in terms of how much space people have. So to use Nigerian word, the hustle has deepened. So people, who would ordinarily, go to work, come back at 3 and have maybe another 5 hours, to deal before their sleeping hours, have to deal with those issues. And then you also have infrastructure issues. How much NEPA, how much electricity do you have? If you wake up at 1, 2 a.m. and you want to do some 2 hours of reading or work, would you go out late that night to go put on a generator, with security issues? So there are all kinds of dynamics that have crept in. But you also still have one other factor that is strong, which is that Nigeria is a populous country. With our population size, the formal school system takes almost 40 million people. Now that's some number, because they're in the formal school system, and so they have to read, even if it's to read for exams, for assignments, and all of that. So they have to read. Now, but tapping the formal system to go beyond just reading to building a culture of continuous productive reading is something that has not been well done. And I think it's part of the advocacies that will try to get involved and say, if you can catch 5 to 10 million of that 40 million people as captive readers, then it makes it easier for them, because captive readers would make extra sacrifices to sustain their reading habits. That's given. The itinerant reader would just, when he meets a problem, he says, this book does not want me to read it. But the captive reader would find a way around it. He will make an extra sacrifice. He will drop a bottle of beer to pick another book. In that sense, if it comes to as base as making that choice, he would make some sacrifice, cut off a bit of his vacation so that there are people that go into shops, and when they are coming out, they come out with bulging books. They are Nigerians, but they are already captive readers, So that's the point. So I think the critical thing is to build more captive readers, and you would have solved half of the problem.
Wow. You have given, just in that response, you've given, touched on so many different nodes of the issue in Nigeria with reading, but also the possibilities that are there, right? And to draw from my own experience, just rather hurriedly, a reading was arranged for me in Ibadan. On the day of the reading, there was a torrential rainstorm, rainfall. And I was saying to myself, whoa, nobody's going to come out in this rain. I got to the bookstore, the booksellers in Ibadan, and the place was packed, to my surprise. But the next thing that surprised me was that almost everybody who came to that reading, almost everybody bought a book.